Good morning, good morning, good morning to you, everybody. It is Thursday morning at 10 a.m. And guess what? It is time for the Her Investing Coffee Talk with yours truly, Jessica Perrone, founder of Her Financial IQ. Now, I have some really funny stories today. No joke. This is going to be a good one. So I'm so glad that you are joining. And just a little bit about the Her Investing Coffee Talks. What I try to do here is I talk about money concepts, I talk about investing concepts, and I make them super duper fun for the ladies. We've had some guys, joining in as well. That is absolutely fine. The more the merrier. But I do try to keep the stories like kind of woman oriented, but I'm sure everyone can laugh at it. I don't mind everyone laughing at me. I find humor in myself and in what I'm doing. Now, as you come into the chat, please say hi. I love seeing you in the chat. Contribute, say hi, say where you're from, and feel free to be rowdy in the chat room. I don't mind. The funnier, the better. And also, if you have any questions, feel free to chime in as well. So it's been another really, really, really fun week at Her Financial IQ. I know, again, I say this every week, but it's the evolution. It's the evolution of a startup and seeing all the lives that I'm touching and all the different types of people that I'm helping and all the different types of backgrounds. And it's just been so enormously, gigantically just amazing experience. So thank you to everybody who has taken part in Her Financial IQ in one way or another, whether it's coming to the shows, coming to the workshops. Like yesterday, we had the Stocks for Beginners workshop from the Coco. We had so much fun. Yes, like even afterwards, I went to a social over at the Coco with all these just amazingly intelligent women, all helping each other, lifting each other up. And they were raving about how much fun it was. And now they are, going through their lives, investigating, identifying investments, investigating, their life and looking for investment ideas. It was really cool. Like Deb was there and she was saying how on the drive to the Coco, she was starting to identify investments in her everyday life. And that was super duper rewarding. I've also finished the workbook. Yes, the Get Your Financial Ducks in a Row so that you can start building wealth workbook. I just finished it. And that will be available to purchase very soon. So keep an eye out for that on my website as well. Now, speaking of the Coco, we have one more workshop session this summer. It is in August. It is the Before Investing workshop. It goes along with the workbook that I will have for sale, where we go through different concepts like getting your financial ducks in a row, like putting together an emergency fund, like looking at your budget, looking for places where you can save, getting your budget cutting, looking at your needs versus your wants so you can start saving, start paying down bad debts and getting those financial ducks in a row so that you can start investing and building that wealth. So I'm really excited for that workshop that's coming up in August. Otherwise, live classes are on hold for the summer. We will resume in the fall. I'm working on self-directed classes, so keep an eye out for that. But I have all sorts of radio shows, TV interviews that are free of charge. I have a newsletter that goes out on Tuesdays. So if you want to stay on top of all of those events, including this coffee talk where you can keep practicing the languages of money and investing as well. So let's get started. So over the last few weeks, we've been talking about, again, the financial ducks and escalating these financial ducks, getting them in a row before a quote unquote recession. I know it's a really dismal thing, and I promise we're gonna get funny here. We are gonna get funny here, but what we're talking about with the budgeting and savings, and we talk about this in the workbook and in the class as well, is breaking up your income into 3 pots: your needs, your wants, and your savings, right? So that's how you want to budget your after-tax income. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about needs today and this realization that came to me this morning when I woke up and I grabbed my cell phone, right, to start reading my financial news like I do every single morning, right? I grab my cell phone, I start reading my financial news, and I drink my cup of coffee. That's how I start my morning every single morning. But guess what? I had no self service this morning when I picked up my phone, and I went, oh, like the anxiety started. I'm like, why is my financial news not working? Why is my Bloomberg app not working? Right? I'm like panicking, right? I'm panicking. And then I realized my Wi-Fi was down too. And then I started panicking even more. I'm like, oh, how am I going to work? How am I going to do my broadcast? Just like my whole at-home setup. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Right? So, with that said, like all this anxiety just bubbled up. And so I was like, okay, my thermostat's not working. No joke, my thermostat's not working. And yes, like all these apps that are tied into my Wi-Fi were not working, to automate my house. And I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, you know what? I'm so glad that my coffee machine is not automated. I am so glad my coffee machine is not automated with Wi-Fi, because I would have been really, really super upset, right? If I can't get my coffee to go because I don't have Wi-Fi. So I do my coffee the old fashioned way. I have a kettle. Yeah, no Wi-Fi required, and a French press, hot water, French press. That's it. Very, very, very Zen way to make coffee. Okay. So with that said, and yes, there is a method to my madness here with this story, but so with my limited Wi-Fi service, okay, I went to the FiOS app, and very slickly, okay, without talking to any individuals, completely automated. And we have been talking about how companies are trying to automate, right? They're trying to automate so they don't have to pay the individual, right, to do these jobs. So very slickly, Verizon, that's my FiOS and my self service. So in the app, they said press automatic troubleshooting. And so what they were able to do automatically through the app was check my connection. Yes. And they said, oh, we found an issue. Okay. And so they're like, wait a minute, this will take 5 minutes. Like in the app, I didn't have to talk to anyone. It was right in the app. So it's like processing. And then all of a sudden, guess what? My Wi-Fi is back, my cell service is back, and my Wi-Fi was actually faster now than it was before. So if you're noticing a better broadcast today, yay, thank you, Verizon FiOS app. Okay, so there is a little bit of a story with this story and this experience. I started thinking about needs and wants. Okay. And I realized after this experience that myself and my Wi-Fi are now officially on the needs list, right? The anxiety that, filtered up after not having it this morning, that I don't get that type of reaction if I don't have my coffee in the morning. I mean, I'm a little grumpy, but the anxiety of not having that doesn't really, I don't have that anxiety. So like this was a realization to me that my Wi-Fi is so, and my cell phone are so ingrained in my everyday life. And I said, you know what? I really feel that this is now on my needs list. Okay. So when we've been talking about, like when we talk about the markets, right? And we talk about recession fears, right? The needs bucket, right? The needs bucket of an individual are typically the companies that we have a rotation into with the stock market. Does that make sense? So if we are going into a recession, everything that the individual puts into that needs bucket, right? So your healthcare, it's a need, right? Your healthcare products, the doctor visits, your utilities, right? Your personal hygiene items, those are all considered needs, right? But what I haven't really seen and what I haven't really heard the street talk about is how people are dependent, right, on their cell phones and their Wi-Fi. Okay, so I am almost thinking that these types of plays could be considered defensive plays as well. Now, what's interesting about companies like Verizon and AT&T is that they are not growth stocks. And so because they are, and the reason why they are not growth stocks is because they are pretty well saturated, right? I mean, we had a little bit of a pop during COVID when people went all electronic. They had to stay at home, they had to work from home, they had to upgrade their internet connections, etc. They had to create these workspaces, right? So we had a little bit of a pop during COVID, but now it's pretty well ingrained. So you won't see you most likely wouldn't see any significant growth. Like like a growth company, like a tech company, that's the next big thing, and they're just adding users. But at the same time, people are less likely to cut their internet connection. They might downgrade it, but they're less likely to cut their internet connection as they would something like a Netflix, right? They might cut their Netflix. And we saw that actually earlier in the year when we were listening to Netflix's earnings call, that there was actually a significant decrease, right, in the user base there. So, but with your Verizon, for example, and your AT&T, you're most likely not going to see a significant shift in the user base, either up or down, right? So people have their now there might be some sales that one provider offers, which moves some of the other customers from like Verizon to AT&T, et cetera. You have those little wars price wise, but for the most part, you're not going to see these huge changes in the user base either. So that's another reason why, I was like, ooh, this is kind of an interesting idea that these providers could potentially also be defensive stocks. Now, I also am interested because they are dividend producing stocks as well. So as you hold these securities, you also get paid a dividend. So that's pretty interesting, right? So yeah, this all came bubbling up from waking up this morning and not having access to both my Wi-Fi and my cellular service. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't live without it. Yes, that's how much it's been ingrained in my life. Now, the other thing that I started thinking about when I was thinking about this was I was thinking about Netflix, right? But I was also thinking about teenagers, right? So, for example, Facebook, their stock price decreased significantly earlier in the year because of the user base was going over to TikTok, right? The teens, the youths were going over to TikTok. They were losing some of their user base. So, with that said, it doesn't matter, right, which platform these teens are on, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagramming, or any of these other, cool apps that are going to come down the pipeline. They still, need their phones or, to access these apps. And those phones need cellular service or Wi-Fi. So that was this big realization I had. I was like, oh, it was kind of like that realization I had when I was thinking about EVs, electric vehicles versus gas vehicles, right? I was like, you know what, tires and brakes, and these are all things that both types of cars are going to need, right? So you have these technologies, but one step removed, right? There is a common thread behind all of them. Okay. So with that said, I was then thinking, I was like, oh, okay. So we have all of these providers, right? So we have AT&T, and that ticker is T. We have Verizon, that's VZ. We have T-Mobile, that ticker is TMUS. And then we also have Dish Networks, and that's DISH. And these are all the top 4 nationwide cellular network operators. So what I was thinking though, okay, was that they all need cell towers, right? They all need cell towers to get their cellular service to the end user. Can you guess where I'm going with this? Can you guys guess? Yep. I am going to cell phone towers after that. And you guys know I love talking about REITs as well. And believe it or not, there are cell phone tower REITs. And so just to give you an idea, these cell phone tower REITs are just like the mall that rents out storefronts to your favorite brands like the Gaps, the Banana Republics, or whatnot. The mall itself is the landlord, and the individual stores, right, they rent the space. And usually those malls are part of a REIT, okay? And the same thing with office buildings. There's office building REITs, right? There's the office building, and then the office building leases that space to the individual companies. And then you could also have apartment building, like a residential apartment building REIT as well, where the landlord rents it directly to a residential individual or family as well. Okay, so these are what REITs are, as a refresher. But you also have cell phone tower REITs, right? So the cell phone tower is basically a landlord, right, to these cell network operators. So we have, and 3 of the top REITs are American Tower, that's AMT, Crown Castle, that's CCI, and SBA Communications, and that ticker is SBAC. And it turns out that these 3 REITs own over 50% of the cell phone towers in the US. Yeah, isn't that kind of interesting? And now when you're looking at these, they do have dividends. Yes, they do. But when I was looking at them, actually, I just did a quick look at the PEs. It did seem like the PEs were on a little bit on the high side. I did not have a chance to compare that to the overall communications sector PE or the real estate sector PE. I did not have a chance to do that, because usually what you want to do is you want to compare the PE with the industry group and the sector that they follow as well, just to kind of get an idea of what the PE is. And if you need a refresher on PEs, there are definitely previous coffee talks. Look in the summary there, where I talk more in depth about REITs and PEs. So moving on here, we're talking more about budgeting. And when I also think about budgeting, I've been thinking about budgeting and the value of time. Oh, where am I going to go with this one? Oh, where shall she go with this one? Yes. And you are probably asking, how is this related? Do any of you guys have any ideas how this is related? Okay. So So recently I was doing a research on money saving ideas, and I have a whole page designated to cutting your budget and money saving ideas and tips. Yes, so there's a whole section in my new workbook just based on that. And a lot on the list were do it yourself ideas to save money, right? Do it yourself to save money. Now, I love gardening. And hey, Kendra, I know you're here and I know that you love gardening too. And you are going to love this story, Kendra. You are going to be rolling on the floor laughing. Okay. Okay. Because, and I think I'm a pretty skilled gardener. Okay. I love working in my garden. And before, when I moved into this house, the garden was really, really super sparse. And now with pride, you know, everyone that walks by says, "Oh, you're pretty. Your garden is so pretty." Okay. Now I will admit when I moved in, I did have I had a lawn company come in and like do all the initial like weeding and get everything in order and like pull everything out. And when I got that bill, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do this again. So this year, I said, you know what? Not going to do that. I'm not going to have them do the big weeding. It was done last year, so I'm just going to do it myself and save some money. Because you know me, I love, love, love to save money. And I'm always thinking about what is the return on my investment, right? Okay. So, so with that said, I started thinking, okay, about the return on my investment when it comes to gardening. Okay. Yes. Okay. Kendra, I know you're going to love this one. So my return on my investment in my garden, right, is monetary. Okay. So monetary wise, I go and I get the materials. So I get the mulch, I get the trees, but they're not marked up by the gardening company. I don't have to have a landscape architect company come in and do a fancy design and charge me all sorts of money to make a plan to put all the plants in. You know, I do that myself. So I'm saving money that way. And so, okay. So I'm just spending the actual, the monies that I'm spending. So in this one project that I'm about to talk about, I bought 5 bags of mulch and 1 tray. Okay. So it wasn't that expensive, right? I think that the tree was, it was a pine tree. There was a hole in the line of between my house and another one. And I'm like, you know, I want a nice evergreen tree there. And it wasn't a large tree. The bulb was like this big, you know, and I could pick up the tree myself. So I was like, you know what? I can do this. I can do this. I can plant this one little tree. I can do it. So I started thinking about what is the return on my investment. So the first return is not monetary. It's actually joy. Okay. I love spending the day with my iPods in. Okay. iPods, Apple, AAPL, right? Listening to music on my phone, on the Verizon network, right? We were talking, it comes back to my provider. And so it gives me joy. It gives me great joy. And I love getting dirty and I love being in nature and I love being grounded. Okay. So then we have a monetary investment, right? We talked about the materials that I have to buy to put into the garden. And then also time-wise, okay? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about time investment in a little bit. Remember, I started with time investment, and we're going to go back into this time investment-wise as well. So just to reiterate, we have joy. We have the investment that I put, that the monetary investment will add value to my house. Oh, that's where I was going with that one. I was going to say added value to my house, right? Because now it looks prettier. The house looks prettier now that it has pretty gardens around it. I also, another benefit, another return on my investment is that it is great exercise hauling bags of mulch. And can I tell you that wet mulch weighs so much more than dry mulch. So when you are going to Home Depot, make sure you go for the bags that are covered, not uncovered, like yours truly, who got the wet mulch. And let me tell you, it was so heavy. It really was. But I got a great workout. Out of it. Okay. And so, the hauling bags of wet mulch and digging holes with shovel, this physical activity keeps me fit, right? Which keeps insurance costs down because I'm in fit and in good health. Okay. Okay, so it keeps me fit, and I don't have to have a gym membership in the summer months because I run outside and I do my gardening in heavy bags of mulch. Yes. It gets me in the sun, which is vitamin D, fresh air in my lungs, right? Fresh air in my lungs. And it allows me to be social with my neighbors who stop and talk to me as they walk past. Okay, so that is one of the returns on my investment. However, if I'm in the garden, I am not working on my business or reading my market news or researching investments. Okay. So the cost of my garden is actually materials plus the cost of my time. Yeah. So let me say this again. The cost of my garden is actually the materials plus the cost of my time. Okay. So, and that's what I want you to start thinking about when you're thinking about these do-it-yourself projects. Okay. And once upon a time, I was talking to a business owner who actually calculated the value of each of his minutes. No joke. He actually calculated how much each one of his minutes were worth. So if you think about it, if your time is worth $10 a minute and you can hire someone at $10 an hour to help you with a task, it kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? And it's really a strange realization that when you think about how much it even costs him to walk to a meeting, right? In a meeting room, wait in a meeting room, be transported to a meeting versus Zooming, if you think about that, or like even going to get coffee, sending an assistant to get coffee versus going to get coffee yourself, right? So these are all uses of your time which cost you money. And you can even apply this to waiting in line at a store. Yes. So for example, I hate waiting in line at stores. I do. It is a pet peeve of mine because I know the value of my time, right? My time is worth money, right? Because everything I do is what is the return on this investment? What is the return on this money? And my time is money. So what is the return on my time as well? Yes. So, for example, when I go to Home Depot, I do not go at noon on a sunny day on a Saturday. No. I go to Home Depot when it's a pouring monsoon out and I have my rain jacket on and there's nobody there. Like that's sort of how my mind works, so that I do not have to wait in line. So that also includes like eating dinner at like 4 or 5 o'clock if I go out. Nowadays, I really don't even like going out to eat, but if I do, guess what? I go out at like 5 o'clock on a Tuesday instead of 6, 7 o'clock on a Saturday, right? Remember, it's the return on your time as well. Okay, so we are going back to this tree. Okay, we're talking about the tree again, and this is where it gets funny. So, so the hole on my property line is like the hole in the canopy, I should say, is now overgrown with ivy. Okay. And I was like, so as I start pulling the ivy so I can start digging, I'm like pulling and I'm pulling and I'm pulling. And guess what? There's a little bit of poison ivy in there. yes, there's a little bit of poison ivy in there. And I've never had poison ivy bad. I do wear gloves and I know what it looks like. So but I've never really had a bad case of poison ivy. So I didn't even think anything of it. I'm just pulling and I'm pulling and I'm pulling the weights. Okay. But it takes me, and like, I don't know if you guys know about ivy, but it's like right underneath the layer, the top layer of soil. So you can't see how much of ivy is there. So I'm like pulling and I'm pulling and I'm pulling. And then I have to go get tarps. No joke, right? So this is that, so you give a mouse a cookie scenario where one thing just leads to another. So okay, so I go get the tarps and I'm like, I'm pulling and I'm pulling and I'm pulling. And I end up having, no joke, like a whole garage full of yard waste. Okay. And this is before I even get to digging the hole. Okay. So I have a garage full of yard waste. And the next day, I actually had to go apply for a dump permit, right? So I could get rid of all this. And I still haven't taken, it's still in my garage right now, all this yard waste, because I have to load up the car and then I have to take it to the dump. And I'll tell you why I haven't done it yet, okay? Which is wait for it, okay? So I have all the yard, I have all of the yard debris cleared. And so now it's time to dig. So I start digging and there are the old roots from the old tree and they're like massive. They're this like big and I'm just like digging and I'm like chopping and then there's rocks and no joke, this little project of this one little stinking tree ends up taking me 9 hours to do. I'm sore. I am grumpy. It is no longer delightful. Okay. I am sweaty and I am stinky, right? And nothing else in the whole stinking house, including grocery shopping and feeding my kids, has gotten done, right? Okay. So, in a parallel universe, okay, my daughter is gardening at her dad's house. I wonder where she gets it. And she gets poison ivy. Okay. And she comes home. And 2 days later, her face is swollen like someone beat her up from an allergic reaction from poison ivy. And guess who else has poison ivy all over her arms and hasn't been able to sleep for 2 nights because of this poison ivy? Guess. Oh, yours truly. Yes, yours truly has poison ivy all over her. Yes. So, with that said, the planting of the tree not only took 9 hours, okay? Not only did I have all of this garden debris that I still have to go do, right? But I am in urgent care with my daughter getting steroids because everything we tried for this stinking poison ivy did not work, okay? And then we realized, okay, and that we were talking to the doctors and there's an actual uptick in poison ivy cases. No joke. I think it's all the do-it-yourself enthusiasm. Are you guys laughing at me yet? Are you guys laughing at this? Okay. So anyhow, what came out of all this is the lesson of today. So the first one was that the doctor prescribed prednisone, okay, which is a steroid. Okay. And I looked at some of the manufacturers who manufacture it. And there were 2, I didn't have a lot of time to like look into all of the pharmaceuticals that distribute it, but 2 of them, like I recognized right off the top of my head. One was Teva Pharmaceuticals and Bayer Pharmaceuticals. So those are 2 examples of prednisone manufacturers. That's the prescription drug. That's a steroid that helps you with poison ivy. Okay. And so after urgent care, we went to CVS and we stocked up on, CVS, ticker CVS. We stocked up on Claritin Bayer, which is made by Bayer. And interesting, Caladrin lotion was all sold out. And that is a Johnson & Johnson product, and that ticker is J&J. And all that was left on the shelves was the CVS brand calamine lotion. Now, this also sort of started having me think about the fact that there were so many CVS products stocked on those shelves, but not the name brand. I thought that was really, really interesting because 2 weeks earlier, I had to go stock up on Band-Aids. That's another story unto itself. And I'm pretty much a brand loyalist. I am. And it turns out that Band-Aids are owned by Johnson & Johnson. And when I was looking for the Band-Aids, they had the CVS brand Band-Aids, but they didn't have the Johnson & Johnson. And I was wondering, is that because of supply chain issues, or is CVS using that as an excuse to get their brand up front and center, right? So I started thinking about that. So of course, my rabbit holes that I go down. These are the rabbit holes I go down when I go through these things. Okay, so then my saving grace, cortisone cream. I didn't realize cortisone cream works so well with poison ivy. Ladies, cortisone cream. You shouldn't put it on your face though. Just an FYI. That does come with a disclaimer. And cortisone cream is actually produced by Chatham, which is owned by the French company Sanofi, and that ticker is SNY. So no joke, I am still itching and losing sleep 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Those main welts have gone down, and I've learned how to manage poison ivy. I have learned that it is ridiculous how easy those oils spread. I had to disinfect Clorox, Windex. I had to disinfect everything in my house. Everything. Because what happened was I had my cell phone in my running pouch as I was gardening. And even though I showered, guess what I was still touching? I was still touching my cell phone. I hadn't disinfected my cell phone. So the oils that day got on my car keys, they got on my car. And whenever I touched those items and touched my skin, the oils got back and I got little breakouts again. Yes, it is crazy how that oil spreads. Yes. So you really have to disinfect everything around you. So I could have gone down the rabbit hole of cleaning products. Okay. So, and I'm fearful to touch the yard debris in my garden now because I'm afraid to get the poison ivy back on me from the tarps. I'm afraid to put it into the car because I don't want to get poison ivy on the car, right? So I'm actually afraid to get the debris, and I'm going to have to get some lawn guys to come and empty out my garage of lawn. I'm just so fearful of getting it again, right? So yeah. So between the time gardening, 9 hours, losing sleep, being miserably itchy, my urgent care visits with my daughter, going to CVS, waiting for the prescription, the money spent on all the cleaning products and allergy products and itch relief products, the tally made it a terrible, terrible, terrible return on my investment. Yes, and next time I'll just hire a lawn service to dig that stinking hole and put the tree in, or I'll go ahead and find a neighbor's son or daughter that wants to do it for me and pay them, like minimum wage. But for their good, I'll ask them and their parents if, yes, they are allergic to poison ivy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So what I really want you guys to take away from this experience is the value of your time, right? And it's super duper important to take that into an account, right? And also think about what you are good at. Maybe you barter. Maybe you see the value of some of your skills, and I'm really good at investing. So maybe I will go to the owner of the lawn service and I'll say to them, hey, I can help you, think about your financial ducks and give you one-on-one coaching in exchange for digging this darn stinking hole for this tree, right? So you can start thinking about your time as money, and therefore, what is the return on that money? What is the return on your time? Yeah, really funny, right? I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I did. Now, the one thing that did come out of this, okay, the one thing that did come out of it was that I learned something really super important. So I was going to the pharmacy for a separate prescription. Yes, I made lots of CVS visits this week. Maybe I should just set up a desk in CVS, right? Oh my goodness. Anyhow, so one of the prescriptions that the doctor called in, I forget which one it was super duper expensive, even with my insurance. And I went, oh my God, you can say, will my insurance cover this? Will they cover a separate drug, et cetera? And so they said, well, there is no, this is the generic, there is no regular prescription for this drug. So I said, okay, I called the doctor and I said, is there another product that is similar that can do the same thing, but costs less, right? So you can actually call the doctor and ask them and brainstorm with them about a potential another prescription that might be less expensive. And while I did that, this amazing nurse said, have you ever seen the Good RX app? Okay, so this app is Good RX. That's GOODRX. And what it helps you do is it helps you find which pharmacies closest to you have the best price on drugs. Yeah, right? No, let me repeat that. This app helps you find the pharmacy that has the best price for the drug. So this is how it works. So, for example, with this prescription that was going to cost me $169 with insurance. That's with insurance because it was discounted from $300 and something dollars. And I'm like, this is ridiculous, right? That's really super expensive. So when I called this really lovely nurse, she pulled up the app on her and she says, oh, Stop and Shop down the street has it for $40. No joke, no joke. Because it's actually the pharmacy who sets the price for these drugs, not the insurance company. I was amazed. I was like, really? I had no idea. I always thought it was the insurance company, right, who had the purchasing power that allowed for special pricing, but it's actually the pharmacy. At least that is the way it is here in New Jersey. So what I was able to do was call the pharmacy, confirm the pricing, because you do want to confirm that they will honor that pricing. And then you call your doctor and they in turn can place the order for that prescription at that other pharmacy. So out of this whole experience with the poison ivy and the pharmacy, I did learn another money saving tip for you guys, which is the Good RX app. Make sure that you are shopping that price of your Prescription. Yes. Yeah, I was really surprised because, a lot of items in the needs category of your budget, and prescriptions are part of those needs, right? A lot of them are set costs, right? They're reoccurring set costs, especially a lot of those prescriptions out there. And some of those prescriptions can be really super expensive. So, yes, you can work on your medical costs and the budgeting for your needs as well. So yeah, I thought that was pretty fantastic. Yes, I've already been talking for 45 minutes here. I'm not going to be able to get to those news items today, but I thought you would find these two stories that I told you today pretty pertinent to your everyday life and your budgeting life, whether it is also thinking about potential items that you would like to add to your identifying investment list, or ways to cut your budget in the Getting Her Ducks in a Row workbook. So in closing here, I always like to leave with a little bit of inspiration. And today's inspiration comes from Taylor Swift. I will admit, I'm a Taylor Swift fan. Yeah, a little cheesy, but that's okay. But this is her quote. It is, "Being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind." Let me repeat that. It is, being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind. And that's my wish for her financial IQ. The possibility of being good to people, to rise up those down on their luck and changing lives for the better, one woman and teen at a time. I'm really super amazed at the community that we're building of women committed to financial health, wellness, growth, and freedom. You may be overwhelmed about getting those ducks in a row. Yeah, those financial ducks in a row. It can be really super hard changing spending habits, but it is a baby step and you can do it. You're doing it just by being here today. And should you wish to take your money and investing journey outside the coffee talks, watch my interviews, check out my panels, attend my workshops, and keep an eye out for my self-directed courses and the workbooks coming soon. I'm Jessica Perrone, the founder of Her Financial IQ. You have been watching the Her Investing Coffee Talk. May the markets be in your favor. Bye now. Take care. Thanks for watching. See you next week.